Hey guys, before we get in the video today, I want to let you know that we had a few audio problems with our guest, so you might hear some crackling and some weird audio noises, but regardless, it was an awesome show, so enjoy it. Gentlemen, welcome to the second installment of KnR Live, where we bring the entertainment to you, and other times we do other things. Rick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing splendid. I'm in the middle of a move, so my background over here looks super boring. I'll be sure and put stuff up there later, but it's going to be pretty neat. Doing good. Little bit of sore, but it's exciting weekend so far. Excited to get back into it. And how about yourself?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. You know, quarantine is nice and quarantine is fun. That's what I've been saying this whole time.
Yes, absolutely. Ever since they put me at home, just this is fun 100% all the time. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, we have a super special guest today, but before we introduce them, I would love to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Buy More, Save Less. Buy More, Save Less, the one-stop shop for the spenders in your family. Do you have an uncontrollable desire to spend money on things you don't need? Well, don't worry, because Buy More, Save Less is here for you. They have all of your don't need necessities, like overpriced flip-flops for when you go to the beach and want to show off, but it turns out you spent so much money on your flip-flops that you take them off the moment you get on the sand because you don't want to get them dirty. Buy More, Save Less. Be irresponsible. And be sure to use code KNR Live strongly discourages people from going to this place at the checkout for an additional 1% off one item in your order.
Great stuff. Big shout out to Buy More, Save Less for sponsoring today's video. I know for sure I'm going to go there. And be sure to, once again, use that code KNR Live strongly discourages people from going to this place in order to get that additional discount for you. Going to be great. Thanks, guys, for sponsoring the show.
Absolutely.
Cool. So today, on today's second episode, we thought we were going to bring in one of the most awesome, dopest, figuratively speaking, of course, the person that you could possibly meet in your entire life.
Yes, sir.
And I'm mostly not kidding about that. This guy is actually pretty awesome. He's an artist, content creator, streamer, lyricist, and pastor, all contained within the same person, Mr. ZerandeSG. Zer, how are you doing today? It is so great to have you here on our show with us.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, man. It's great to be here. Thank you guys for having me on, Kyle and Rick, man. And it's been actually really, really awesome. I had my family fly into town, surprise me, and so been spending the past few days with them. They just left, and so I'm gonna miss them.
It's cool to hear you're doing really well. I guess let's go ahead and start into this content. I mean, can you give us a quick overview of basically what you do, a good overview of who you are, and what you feel your passions are, and kind of what you're doing during this time?
Yeah. So I am I would call myself a content creator. I make videos. I do spoken word. I do anything really that involves my voice and kind of being in front of people. I really enjoy doing that. And so I originally, when I first started doing online content and just making things for people, I started off as a spoken word artist and a singer / preacher. That was my main focus. That was early 2015, 2016. And my whole goal was just to get into churches, get into, youth camps, get into DNOWs, things like that, where I would be preaching, I would be speaking, I would be performing spoken word, singing, leading worship. That was really where I was at. But then I got married in 2017, and my wife really just we made a video that kind of blew up with in terms of I made a date night video where we went to Razzoos, and people were like, man, you should make content like this. You should make more, because it's fun, it's encouraging, it's cool. And so I made a YouTube channel in 2018, and from there it was just all I would really wanted to do was make videos, and that really got me going into what I'm doing right now, which is primarily focusing on streaming and making gaming content, but for the purpose of making a community around Jesus and gaming, two things that I'm really passionate about. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Seems a really neat medium, yeah. But kind of from that, I haven't been to a Razoo's, but I hear it's pretty neat. Do you remember what you got from there and kind of explain what it is? Just because I'm hungry.
Oh
mostly.
man, Razoo's. Yeah, Razoo's. If you don't know what Razoo's is, and you're into that Cajun spicy food stuff, that's the place to go. That's the joint, man. Me and my wife, whenever the NBA finals are on, that means it's crawfish season. And so every single time we go there, it's a pound of crawfish, 2 pounds of crawfish, where we just down in it, eating the corn on the cob, the potatoes, and then maybe get some rat toes, or what they're called. They're like jalapeno poppers.
Yeah, crawfish boils are like, crawfish is just loud food. You cannot order crawfish discreetly. It doesn't happen. And I'm not so into it myself, but like I like looking at it and watching the whole process of it. It's super cool. Al, have you ever done like Cajun food or anything like that? Are you into it?
You know, I used to go to this place called Boudreaux's. It has the weird spelling, Baux, something like that, or it's I don't know.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
But and I used to think I'd like Cajun food, but what I would get is a chicken sandwich with Cajun spice. And so I'm like, man, I love Cajun food, man. It's the best. But really, like, I've never really eaten Cajun food. I've eaten like gumbo and jumbo once, but I was not really eating real Cajun food, so I don't really know. But I've heard that at least at Razoo's, alligator, like tails or whatever they sell there, tastes like chicken. So
I've had alligator. I can attest to that. Alligator is good. I would eat it again for sure. Well, I know, Zer, we absolutely brought you here to talk about Cajun food, but let's spring into one of our side topics. One of the questions we wanted to ask you were pretty much what made you want to move your efforts into the role of a content creator? Because if you think of you just like generally being a pastor, I mean, most of that comes from your passion for Christ and everything that goes into that. And it's a pretty new, like streaming and like content creating for the internet is a relatively new thing that you can kind of chase in today's day and age. And it seems kind of like not necessarily a stretch, but it's a very new idea to kind of connect those two passions. So I guess, how did you make that connection? What brought the idea of bringing like content creation into what you were already passionate about?
Yeah, I think to answer that question in a phrase or in a word would just be my outreach. Because when I was first starting as a spoken word artist, I needed to get out there. The primary way that I was getting out there was doing word of mouth. So if I would go to a church, they would recommend me to another church, and they would get my contact information, and then I would be able to go and speak at that church, or perform a spoken word piece. But then what I realized is people use the internet, and it is a free medium for you to put your stuff out on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever. Facebook, I used Facebook a lot. I made a Facebook page and everything. And I would just start recording myself. So I started recording pieces that I would do at a church and just put it up on YouTube. So that way I had kind of like a resume / portfolio that people could see. And then as I became, as that started to take off, I got hired on at Fielder. And one thing that I realized as a student pastor is I need to be where the students are. Yep. And the truth of the matter is that's where students are. They're online. They're playing video games. They're on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They're on Twitter. And so it's not, at that point, it just made me realize it's not about necessarily what I want. I mean, because that is what I want. I want to engage students, but where students are online. I mean, yes, they are at the sporting events, they are, in schools, but a lot of them, where they really show their true selves and where they're willing to engage you, is online. And so I kind of had to change my perspective that online is a real space. It's a place where they go to share their hearts, to share their thoughts. And so I'm going to engage them where they're at rather than expecting them to come to me.
It's a really good way to bridge it together, and that
Absolutely.
actually makes a ton of sense if you think about it that way, for sure.
For sure. Zara, I want to ask you this one. Like, you talked about how, the way you got into making content, but were there any like role models that helped you make that leap or that pushed you towards that? Because I know you said that you were motivated by just kind of reach and getting the word out, but is there anybody that you consider like a role model that kind of helped you get into that and stuff?
Yeah. So when I was first starting out, honestly, what really got me into spoken word in general was Jefferson Bethke.
Hmm.
And he is a spoken word artist now turned, like, his family moved to Hawaii and they have like a Christian TV series that he's a part of. And so really what he did this piece, I forget what it's called, but specifically the content of it was just about women and how they're objectified in pornography. And then it like blew up. Like, not just my Christian friends were talking about it, but my non-Christian friends were talking about it, because it was just this really unique way that he was preaching Christ, and it blew up. And it made me realize that the internet is a crazy place.
Yeah.
It is a place where everybody's on, and that you can reach so many people. And he's just all he did was perform a spoken word piece, make it look really cool with different, video effects and things like that. And it blew up. And it just made me realize, like, I looked up to him and what he did, and made me realize that that's the direction that I need to go if I want to continue reaching people, Sure, my reach is one thing here in my physical location with other churches, but man, they can actually expand and you can reach far more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like getting into the internet is pretty much like just a very expanded sort of word of mouth thing, because
Yeah.
like before it, you would have to tell, like that's why you would still see things like door-to-door salesmen and like
Yeah.
actual mail campaigns of sending mail through to tell people, hey, this is what I'm doing, or hey, this is a business I'm starting. And just like with how connected we are via social media and everything that the internet really has to offer, in that case, like of course it can lead into a lot of things that are kind of detrimental, but like on that, the benefits of it are pretty grand, in that if you have a message to give, if you have something that people need to know about, it's so much easier to do that now. And luckily my network of people is usually, or like network of people that I interact with pretty daily, are using it for that purpose, and that they have something important that they feel needs to be said, words of encouragement and things like that. It's getting passed through that. And normally, like, what I would have to do is I'd have to call somebody on the phone, tell them, hey buddy, and now I can do that to everyone
Yeah.
at once, which I think is cool. So it makes a whole lot of sense to me that, like, especially like what you said with reach, and that going to where your, like, basically where your demographic, or just your like group of people who needs to be reached, it's easier to find that now that everyone's a lot more connected in. So yeah, I think that's something to chew on for sure. Like, it's I think that's a great place to go into. So that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me adding, just actually real quickly, this is another side. If I'm going to shout out to somebody, a role model is the very guy who's on the other side of this mic, KJMPG, Kyle Jennings, music production and gaming, Zoe M, because he really pushed me towards, Kyle, thank you. That's what I need to say. Kyle, thank you, because you really pushed me towards just seeing streaming and the value that's there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm already playing video games and I'm already with students. And especially with quarantine happening and COVID and everything, why not connect the two? Why not make it a platform to really make an impact in these students' lives that are already gaming with me, and then even expanding that reach, as you were saying, Rick. So shout out to KJ. But and then also what you were saying, Rick, about demographic. Again, like I was thinking about it in the sense of exactly that. My students are online, and so and then the people that are my age are online, millennials. But you know what? That's also this true for, hey, if you got some people that are in the older demographic, 70s, 80s, if they're not online, then yes, the best platform for you to reach them would still be mailers, would still be
Word of mouth and things
TV,
like that.
word of mouth, radio, things like that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so you have a really good idea of like who you're reaching and where they're at, which is like that's good for people who are like working at churches, and even for like just entrepreneurs in general. Like if you don't know how to reach the people who will like buy your product basically, then it's just not going to work out very well for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you I feel like that also speaks to if you ever decide to like branch out into like different kinds of content, or really just like wherever life takes you from that point. I think like you have a good idea of that, and I think that's something good to pass on to like just as general advice. Like if your success or like your project depends on other people like engaging with you, with your message, with your product, whatever it is, it's really important to know where they are and how you can reach them.
Right. All right. Well, Zer, thanks for that. You know what? Let's take a quick little side road here. Let's go to a segment that I think it's one of my top 5 favorites. But let's go to Here's to That.
Cool. So this is Zer's first time on our podcast. Can you kind of explain, Kyle? Can you explain a little bit on how Here's to That works?
Absolutely. So, Zer, what's going to happen is Rick is gonna read us a nice little segment. Basically, what he's going to talk about is just the small things in life that are usually unspoken, but they deserve a cheers to. All right. So, if you have a water near you, if you don't have water, I'll give you time to go get one. But Rick's gonna read this off, and we're just gonna cheers together. All right.
Here's to the neighbors who you have that don't really talk to you, but still occasionally like give you the notion of like positive affirmation, basically saying, "Hey, I recognize you're there, and you live near me, but I'm also not going to talk your ear off." Because that's what a lot of neighbors do. So it's not necessarily like animosity, like giving the frowny face to your neighbors and not saying anything. But it's not saying anything to your neighbors, but still being like cheerful and happy, like, "Hey, I recognize you," and that's super great. We don't have time to listen to each other's life stories or anything like that, and I mean sometimes not even the abridged version, but that doesn't mean that we hate you or anything like that. We're just going about our day. So hey, here's to you neighbors who are not just story vomiting all over us, and instead giving us a notion that we're cool with each other's presence. Here's to that.
Here's to that.
Here's to that.
All right, so let's continue on. I want to keep on picking your brain for some information here. But so, do you feel it's helped your career as a pastor, like as a content creator? Do you feel like that's helped you further yourself as a pastor, or do you think it's just like a totally different category altogether?
I think the first, what you mentioned, the first, that it has definitely enhanced what I do as a pastor. Because I mean, I don't see it as something separate of who I am. I think everything is intermingled. Everything they overlay on each other. And so, like, I'll give you a quick example. And I say this all the time, even when I'm streaming, is one thing I realized is, especially during quarantine, we did Zoom calls with our students every Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Before the 11 o'clock service. and I would text all my students. I would, send them a reminder individually, every single student. Say, hey, we have something going on, a Zoom call. I'd love you to join our village morning time, and so come at 10:15. They wouldn't show up, but I put it out there on social media. I say, hey, I'm streaming 7 a.m. in the morning, Monday to Friday. And guess who shows up? A bunch of my students at 7 a.m. They wouldn't wake up at 10:15 on a Sunday, but because it's what they do, it's what they like, it's where they're willing to go on Twitch at 7 a.m. in the morning. They were willing to wake up with me throughout the week to join me. And so one thing that's so interesting in all that is I've had opportunities to talk to even parents who would see me post about it on social media, on Facebook. And so they would message me, say, hey, my student is starting to mature now, and I'm trying to let them play more mature games. Can you help me navigate this? And it's because of the fact that I let them know that, hey, I play video games, and I engage even with people who don't have separate beliefs than me, speak different language than me, who, are into completely different worldviews than me. But I get to show the parents and the students how I engage and stay engaged despite the differences of beliefs. And so, man, I think, it has definitely helped me as a pastor to be able to understand not only, or help the students and the parents feel more comfortable with me, but also help them walk them alongside. Like, it's what my parents used to believe when I was growing up, that there was a stigma about video games, but now I get to walk with them, with the parents during all this. So it's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is really cool.
especially like that's like that kind of getting into like video games are just it's way bigger of an industry now, and it is a whole lot more common with everyone like if you had talked about this like back in the like 70s, 80s, or even like 90s, like it's that it just doesn't make any sense at all. And that kind of goes into the previous point of like it's really interesting that we can do this in this day and age as a way to connect,
Yeah.
which is really neat. But I think a lot of that reach too, and especially like especially in your case, is like if people are not showing up at 10:15 on a Sunday when like essentially everyone should have or should be making the time to do like what it is you're trying to get at, it should be easier, I guess. But like you have people hopping onto streams and stuff, and that's what they're going to be more interested in taking to. So, and I think this kind of goes with. I guess it kind of goes in with like a lot of people who would be turned off to the idea of like I'm I'm gonna watch this person I know like stream video games because I do that on my own time rather than somebody texting me, hey, will you go to video church today?
Yeah.
It just
Right.
seems like I'd kind of like, all things considered, it's gonna be more, I guess, for whatever reason they'll take some more value in it as like entertainment or whatnot. But if I understand what you're doing correctly, the same content of what you're trying to say is the same in each of those two instances for the most part. So like if one works, that's something you can put the focus into. If something else doesn't work but you'd like to, you're still making that effort, which is still important. But at least it seems like you recognize like where you're doing really well and really building upon that, if I'm right.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And like, again, it comes down to if they're not going to come to me when we as a staff, as a student staff, we made this emphasis like Sunday morning, this is where we're going to connect with our students. But I've saw this disconnect of them not wanting, it's kind of feeling zoomed out, I guess, and not wanting to be in that space. So instead of just letting it be and then saying, oh, this sucks, like they're not coming. Well, okay, what can I do is I'm gonna go invade where they're already at. Most of them are watching video games, playing video games, at least the ones that on my campus, and it's case to case basis. But this is where I saw a lot of my students engaging in, and so I decided, hey, why not? Let's engage them where they're at rather than expecting them to be where I'm at. And just to be able to see the fruits of it has been awesome. I've been able to see and have conversations with students that, in a way, I was kind of losing connection with
Mm.
over quarantine. But to meet them where they are is it's been a blessing for sure for my ministry and for just those relationships.
Yeah, and I almost feel like there's, in America, it feels like we've built up this idea that you've got to be good enough, and like there's this unspoken pressure that anything that's church related, oh, like, if I'm not feeling, like I belong, or if I'm not feeling like I'm good enough, I can't really attend this. And so there's this pressure on these people, and you say, hey, show up to a Zoom call, at 10:15 on a Sunday. It's not that they can't wake up. It's just that, I don't know if I want to put on this face, or I don't know if I want to, I don't feel like I'm good enough or whatever. But then you create this other platform. It doesn't have the church name, or the name connected to it. But it relieves the pressure, and there's like, oh yeah, I do this for entertainment. I do this fun. This is no problem. And you say 7 a.m. It's like, it's okay. It's fun. I like watching streamers, so I'm gonna do it. But that doesn't, and it also allows you, like, you're still who you are, whether it's 10:15 on Sunday morning or 7 a.m. Or whatever time you are on your stream, So it almost feels like there's this pressure lifted off of the people, and especially the students. So I don't know. That's really cool to know.
I have a question on that. And I think this kind of ties into like two completely different like industries, so to speak, as a whole. So you said you have some parents reach out to you from time to time saying, "Hey, like, can you assist my kid with this?" And like just for various things that they might be going through that like a third person might have to kind of like intervene with, because I mean, just kind of as a philosophy, I think like third parties are almost always helpful, if nothing else,
Mm-hmm.
just to have an outside perspective. I guess my question is, do you hear from like other parents on this, and are they generally like kind of the same way? Do they feel like this is like a good platform between like you and their children, who should be connected and things like that? How do they kind of take to it as far as you've seen and heard?
Yeah, I think my engagements with parents overall has been positive. I don't think I've actually engaged with a parent who thought what I was doing was like in a negative light.
Mm-hmm.
More so, I've had parents just trying to understand it because many of their kids are already playing video games. They don't really understand the video game world. They don't really understand the kinds of games that their kids are playing. They just know, oh, my kid likes Fortnite, so they buy him Fortnite, buy him an Xbox, buy him a PS4, buy him a PC, and then let him go. But some of them don't know about some of the cyberbullying. Some of them don't know about some of the toxic culture that can be in video games. Some of them don't know about, even ratings of video games. They just know, okay, Call of Duty. Oh, every kid plays Call of Duty, but not knowing that there's explicits in those games, that there could be. They don't know the intricacies of the world, and so of the gaming world. And what I've received is kind of like this: hey, Zer streams video games, so he must be knowledgeable about that world. Let me go ask him about it. And I've also had parents on the opposite side of that who do know about it, who actually watch streamers, and they just said, wow, a student pastor is a streamer. I'm going to show my support.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also because I know he's a student pastor and I know the character of who he is. I'm going to let my kids watch him. And so I've had seventh graders, eighth graders, as young as they are, watch my content, and parents feel comfortable coming to my channel to watch because they know who I am, but also knowing what they're going to receive from my content.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's like it's probably just the optimist in me, but like on the other side of that, and just looking at video games as a whole, like a lot of times that is going to come under fire by people who don't really understand it. And I
Yeah.
think like it is kind of a niche little category that we're in at like looking at a student pastor as a streamer as well. But I think kind of as this grows, I think this is going to be a proponent for like like painting just the gaming culture in a better light, because like as you said, there are some negative elements about it, and like as we go on to learn more about it, like there are going to be some things that come about that we find out in the culture that's not so great, some stuff
Right.
that we know already, some things that we don't. But like and I'm probably a little bit biased in that I play video games all the time too, but I'm looking at these reports to say like these games are helping people solve issues that they wouldn't be able to with regular
Yeah.
education, like solving puzzles, critical thinking, reflexes, and hand-eye coordination for sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positive things that can come about it, and then of course because I want it to be painted in a more positive light. That actually, I don't know. I think that's a really cool thing to look into, and that if we can start to help some people who just don't understand it fundamentally, if they do have an entry point into
Yeah.
that field, that's really encouraging to me. So thank you, I guess, for
Yeah.
playing a part in that. That's really
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, like in like just on the video game portion, like is there any particular game that you are like focusing on right now, or like what might some of your favorites be? I guess I'm interested in
hmm
this.
Yeah. So off the top, number one right now is Apex Legends. I play with Kyle. I play with Bia, Blake, and just grinding ranked on those games. But it's really interesting to see the community that's kind of uh, revolved around this game, because I've had, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was previously streaming on Mixer, which was a Microsoft platform. It died down, and so moving over to Twitch has been awesome, because actually the same people who were watching me because of Apex Legends, and obviously because they were liking the content I was creating, followed me over to Twitch, and so it's kind of been cool to see it grow over this one game, because people are in there asking me like, hey, how do you like the changes and the updates, and so kind of asking my expertise on this game that honestly I'm still learning about, and trying to develop my own skills on it. But it's just cool. So that's definitely number one. Number two has to be Rocket League, just because that's the game. That's the even though I suck at it, it is the fun. Just throw your car around there, hit the boost, And outside of that, I think would just be just games that I'm trying to see if there's a following there, because I want to continue to grow, not outside of Apex Legends, and so I'm looking for more chill, more games that aren't as competitive and kind of feeling like I always have to be on edge, which are games like Animal Crossing, because it's super, it's farming, it's fishing, and then games like role playing games like RPGs, Final Fantasy, things like that. So those are probably those three main areas in games that I'm trying to go: the competitive, highly competitive one, the fun multiplayer one, which is Rocket League, and then the solo kind of can just chill and relax games like Animal Crossing.
You kind of do you always think about your game selections as to like who I can reach with this, or do you have a proponent of that's just this is something I would enjoy on my own?
That's a really good question. Yes, 100%. I am thinking about my audience. I still game on my own time, where if I want to be more serious, I can hop online with Kyle and Blake and grind some ranked games. Or if I want to really relax and kind of play a story game, I can go and do that. But whenever I'm streaming, I'm always thinking of my end goal, which is to reach people through my love for Jesus and my love for gaming. That is it. And so if there is a game that comes up that allows me to continue to reach more people with less effort, I'm going to go about it. I'm going to choose that game. I'm going to pursue it, because that's my whole purpose. Is I don't just stream, for the sake of streaming. I want to stream for the sake of really making a community around Jesus and gaming. And what if that comes up from another game, then I'm going to play that game. Right. If it comes up from Apex Legends, great. I'm going to keep grinding Apex Legends. But yes, definitely streaming and the audience that I'm trying to reach plays a big role in the games that I'm going to be playing.
Well, thank you very much for that. We have one more thing to do with you before we go. So for this last segment, we tweeted out and asked your fans and followers to submit questions that they would like to know about you. And don't look up if we actually did that. Just trust us. It totally happened.
100%.
100% trust.
So, yes, let's go on to one of our favorite game segments, Take Cover. Okay, so for Take Cover, for this one, this is a new segment that we're doing, but is specific to our guests. So we take these questions that we totally, absolutely, 100% tweeted out to grab, and you're going to have about 45 seconds you're going to have 45 seconds to answer all these, and it's totally on a stopwatch that I absolutely have, and the time is real, so be sure you do these with a sense of urgency, and please don't question our legitimacy at all. So, Kyle, I'm going to hand it over to you to ask the questions, and Zer, you're going to answer these as quickly as you can in the time you have provided. So we're going to give you, let's say, 42 and a half seconds. So, timer's on the clock. Ready? Go.
All right, Zer. Favorite subsegment of the color blue?
Aqua.
Favorite temperature for AC at the house?
72.
If your parents let you choose your name, what would it be?
Kevin.
Do you make backstories for the characters you see or create on video games?
I create backstories?
Do you make backstories for the characters?
Oh, yes, all the time.
All right.
13 and a half seconds.
If you are traveling in the Amazon and you come across a bridge guarded by a massively ugly troll and he asks you the question, who was actually in Navy SEALs? Emilio Estevez, or Charlie Sheen? While you're pulling out your phone to check IMDb, what app do you get distracted by and open instead?
4 seconds.
Instagram.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Just in time. Just beat the buzzer. Wow.
Let's go.
Well, Zer, thanks so much for being on the show, man. It's been a pleasure, and it's always a blessing to hang out with you. Man, if you guys are interested in checking out Zer, his socials will be in the description below. He's on Twitch, he's on YouTube, he's on SoundCloud, and he's on iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. I'll link his stuff in the description as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you can check us out on Instagram on the link below. So Zer, we have a famous line. We have a famous send-off that we always send the folks out with. All right. So why don't you hit them with it right now?
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening to KnR Live for this episode. And remember, when life gives you plastic baggies, put things in them and save them for later. Good night, everyone.